Hey guys, welcome to Spice and Rice. Today we are at Jackson Lake talking about my husband's job. Come along for the walk and listen to us chat. So we are at Jackson Lake in Farmington, New Mexico, and Baby Gio's in her polka. You need help?
No. I'm a fully functional man. I can do all the muscles. Oh, I need help.
A fully functional man. Daddy's fully functional man needed quite a bit of help.
To keep involved. You know, you have to sometimes behave like that.
Whatever. He needs me. He just won't admit it. So let's talk about Daddy Joe's job. Okay, Daddy Joe,
Yes.
tell us, what do you do?
I'm an oncologist, and in simple terms, I would say I see and treat blood disorders and cancer patients. I mostly am a medical oncologist, which basically means that you do chemotherapies for essentially all kinds of cancers
Baby
in
Joe.
general.
Hi, Baby Joe.
Hi.
She doesn't want it. Can you tell me what a regular day is like for you?
Yeah, so before that, let me just actually take a step back and tell you the different kinds of oncologists. So in general, there are three different kinds of oncologists. One is a surgical oncologist, and then
Well, that's hard to get into actually. It's like almost, it's not plastic surgery, but it's like the plastic surgery
I see.
of general surgery.
So surgical oncology is where any cancer surgeries are done.
Like if they remove something?
Yes.
Okay.
Now the next is the radiation oncologist. Are the people who basically do radiation treatments for cancer. And the third subset is medical oncologist.
By the way, radiation oncology is also very hard to get into.
Yes. Consequently, however, the job market for radiation oncology is also not as good.
That is true.
The third, which is something what I do, is called medical oncology, which primarily involves doing chemotherapies for most patients.
What do you do on a daily day?
So typical day basically involves, in the office we are mostly outpatient. Inpatient I would say would be less than 10%.
Oh, it's beautiful behind, by the way.
Yeah, it's pretty. I mean, I did not.
It's very pretty.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is a typical Farmington kind of a hike. Typical days basically in the outpatient setting where you see patients from, 8:39 and ends at like 4:35. You mostly see patients during the day. We have an infusion suite. We give chemotherapies. Some of these chemotherapies can go over for hours and hours. Some are multi-day regimens. Nurses do a great job in keeping a close eye on these patients, and sometimes there are reactions. So we have to basically go and make sure everything is okay. Now we do get consults from the hospital. That is mostly a call schedule which we have. And you have to go inpatient once in a while. Not too heavy, I would say, however, compared to some of the other fields like ICU.
But ICU is much better. They're 7 days on, 7 days off kind of thing.
I don't know if it is much better or not. I don't know if it's doable or not for people who do it.
But is your job as glorified as we see on TV, like Grey's Anatomy, when they show a tragic patient with a great life story and then it all comes to an abrupt end? Is it more sedate than we see on TV?
I mean, I don't know what about Grey's Anatomy anyway. It's actually pretty beautiful. Yeah, so anyway, let's see here first. So this is the pretty Jackson Lake.
This is Jackson Lake, and this is in Farmington, New Mexico. We are doing a walk and talk over here because it's actually a beautiful place to think on.
It took us 3 years to come here almost. And that's where we are coming from. Those are cars right there. It's actually a good walk, decent walk. It's not that hot. So coming to that, first of all, I have not seen Grey's Anatomy. That cancer is a life-changing diagnosis. There is absolutely no doubt about that.
What is the saddest case that you've seen?
When there's a 20-some-year-old patient who's diagnosed with cancer, that is really, really unfortunate. And that does happen actually sometimes.
Are most of these cancers curable, or are most of these deadly?
There's no straight answer for that. It depends upon what stage it is. Cancer, of course, is one of the worst diagnoses, but in that also there are some of the cancers which are not as horrible. So some of the blood cancers like CLL for that matter, which is also called as chronic lymphocytic leukemia, there are some people who can go on for years without needing any treatment. There are some other cancers like follicular lymphoma, again same way, they may not need treatment for years, but at some point there is a switch and they start behaving more aggressively and you have to treat them. So I don't think there's a straight answer to that, But I would say in general, cancer is a life-changing diagnosis which needs expert care.
What is the worst kind of cancer in your opinion?
There are multiple worst kind of cancers. Sarcomas are pretty horrible. Pancreatic cancer is pretty horrible.
Patrick Swayze, he died of pancreatic cancer, and so did Apple founder Steve Jobs.
Yep. Leukemias, acute leukemias are pretty horrible. So I don't think you can say, which one is the worst. The brain tumors like glioblastomas are pretty horrible.
Have the research for treatments come pretty far, and are they would you consider this successful?
In 2021, we have come a long way. There is no doubt about that. But we have a long, long, long way to go ahead.
What's one cancer that was not treatable 20 years ago, but is now treatable?
So CML, which is also called as the chronic myeloid leukemia, is a perfect example which changed everything. Back in the day, it used to be a very aggressive diagnosis which needed often bone marrow transplants. But today, we can treat it with some pills. And many patients can go on for years and decades. CML has come a long way, I would say.
You hear a lot about breast cancer because of the Susan B. Komen Foundation. Has breast cancer come a long way, or has a treatment for that been the same?
No, it has come a long way. There's no doubt about that.
I'm in primary care, and for the most part, I don't do any kind of treatment for cancers. I just refer out. I do know a little bit about some cancers, but for the most part, I would consider oncology a whole different field.
Medical oncology is very specialized.
This is not like endocrinology where I can manage diabetes and
Correct.
pituitary and just monitor it.
Correct.
This is something I don't touch at all.
Absolutely. So sometimes we used to discuss amongst our friends, like, is 3 years of training enough for that? Which I believe now, I think it is enough. The learning curve is very steep. So
The learning curve in terms of in residency, or learning curve in terms of fellowship, or actually working?
in fellowship, I would say.
In fellowship?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Now, tell me about the training. You kind of hint about fellowship. What is fellowship and what is training?
So, of course, you have to train under experts. You just cannot start treating at your whims and fancies. Training is pretty long. The medical school, first of all, is around 5.5 to 6 years. If you come from a foreign country like India.
It's 4 years in America.
And 4 years of undergrad, so total 8 years.
Yes.
In America. And you can go for combined programs which can cut by like 1 year to 7 years.
Yes.
Sometimes 6 years also, but in general it's 7 to 8 years.
They've gotten rid of the 6-year programs. My sister is in a 7-year.
In general, 7 to 8 years. And so 8 years of medical school, which is mostly theoretical, you pass the exams and everything. You have the MD degree with you on your name. However, you are completely unfunctional if you do not do a residency.
Legally, you're worthless.
Yeah.
You just put like 300, maybe 400,000 in debt for nothing if you don't have a residency.
So residency is a must to practice in the States. And the residency varies from 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, depending upon what you do.
Plastic surgery is like 7 years. Neurosurgery is 7 years. The shortest one is internal medicine, which is what I'm in, and family, which is also 3 years.
I see. 3 years of internal medicine residency. And then for subspecialization, which is medical oncology and hematology for myself, it is another 3 years of training. So as you can see, like, it is a fairly long...
It's a long road, but it's
road.
more about the journey. It's very like, I remember crying. I'm a crier though. Did you ever cry in the training process? About training, not about anything else.
It did.
Did you really?
Anatomy made me cry. I would never, ever do it again.
Is this the one where you're like Plavix thins the blood? Or is this
Yes, the same year. The first year of medical school, the learning curve was so steep. I was like, oh my god, I don't think I can do this.
That seems like a residency question, to be honest.
No, that was still okay. It's a biochemistry question, but biochemistry was not as tough for me. But anatomy, I refused.
I don't even know the answer to that. Besides
Anatomy?
Plavix thins the blood.
No, it was not Plavix. It was aspirin at that point. Aspirin, why? And the answer was essentially COX-2 inhibition.
In America, it'd be 4 years of undergrad, 4 years of medical school, 3 years of internal medicine, and 3 years. So that would be 8 plus 6, 14 years of training. Now, would you say that after 14 years of training, it's worth it?
Absolutely worth it.
Would you recommend other people do it if they're interested?
Certainly so.
What would you recommend they do if they're in high school?
Well, if you're really interested, give it a try.
Like shadow, or what do you mean?
I think shadowing is good because many times what you think as a middle school, high school person, I mean, you're very, very novice. Reality is way different from, what you think many times.
Now that you've finished your training, Where can you look for jobs? Like you see people working in hospitals.
The job market, very similar to like some other jobs like engineering, I would say.
I think the job market is different from engineering. So in engineering, you have to find a more populated city because that's where the jobs are. In Hemong, I feel like if you go to a more rural location, you can get a more comfortable, higher paying job and get more job satisfaction than if you were in a big city. If you're in a big city though, you do get the benefit of the city. Like let's say you're in New York City, you have access to everything. But you do have to work Saturdays, Sundays, but the pay is lower on the spectrum.
So I think that is a very personal choice. There's always two sides of the same coin. So it depends upon what and where you are in your life to see what you value and what suits your needs. It's a very political answer, but that is the real answer.
It is a very personal decision. Like I said, I feel like...
Oh, Chati, what is happening over here?
What?
Oi, Shondra, Mondra, Nondra.
So when I was 26, 27, 28, I was like, I'm going to go to a big city. However, now that I'm 34, I really prefer a smaller to medium-sized city because time I have babies, or I have baby. Actually, my husband's my baby too. So I have babies and I have to take care of them. And so I would say for me, a big city just doesn't work for me. The cost of living is high, the space is low, and I lose some weekends. I will speak for my husband when I say I think a smaller city to medium-sized city is better for someone who has a family. If you were 18, would you redo this? Or would you go with a different field?
I don't know if I can do anything differently apart from being a doctor. I probably will do the same thing again, I guess.
Would you still be Hemong? Or would you be primary care?
I certainly would not be a primary care.
Why not?
I just won't be.
Why?
I don't know, but no offense to
I
primary
highly
care.
recommend people go into primary care. It has great job satisfaction. Yes, it's not the most high paying and most sexy, but you take care of everything and you'll like the job. Honest. I hope you enjoyed watching this episode of me talking about my husband's job. And if you do, please hit the like button. And if you want to watch more, please hit subscribe. Bye guys.